Many of you know about the Kinder Morgan pipeline and the troubles the BC government has been putting through. Well, what is happening here is this is establishing an international precedence that a province or a state can override federal jurisdiction. And it's really causing demotion of Canada in the eyes of the world. It's bad enough having a prime minister that doesn't know how to be a prime minister. It's really terrible when this is allowed to continue. Well, BC Premier John Horgan, he's causing so much distress for his own constituents and the people of the citizens of BC that many are starting to question and worry about his judgment in this matter. What causes is he following? His loyalty to Canada and to British Columbia, and his sanity in the overall. Now, many are calling him dishonest. And that's a concern. See, we're supposed to be praying for our leaders. And when you have prime ministers and premiers that deliberately alter the facts and create a narrow-mindedness that they won't acknowledge new information. They got their mind set on something and they won't change it. No matter what the truth is or the facts are or the conditions. Then you've got to say, is that a responsible leader? And, you know, over 65% of his constituents are concerned about his mental sanity on this matter. On overall now, that they elected an insane premier. In a press conference on Sunday with Kinder Morgan, it said it would suspend non-essential activities due to the continued activity of opposition from the government of BC. Well, the transportation between provinces is federal jurisdiction, not provincial. Okay, you cannot restrict trade between provinces or international trade that goes through provinces from one province to get to the coast. It cannot be restricted. That's our constitutional law. And to put a blockage in its development for the shipment of oil is an act of treason. And he doesn't care. So,
does he think other people will protect him?
Yeah, Trudeau will come in and protect them, but we have to look at this. This is not good.
Mm-hmm.
And could open the door for an invasion because it now shows Canada is divided beyond repair. Now, they've had a multi-year review of things by the National Energy Board and the federal cabinet, approving it. They've set new conditions, they've done all these things to meet BC's demands. The previous premier was ready to go for the thing because all her conditions. She set 5 conditions, they were all met in spades. Better than she would have expected. Company had no problem with it. Federal government had no problem with it. But this guy says, oh, we don't want all this oil flowing through our province. We're green. We want to keep our area green. But when they had the cold spell, did the Premier turn off the natural gas that heated his home? No. Did the head of the Green Party turn off his gas to his home? No. They turned it up so they would burn more.
Bunch of hypocrites.
And they believe that natural gas produces more carbon dioxide than bunker oil. Insanity. Well, when they gotta travel someplace, do they walk?
Not likely.
No. They
They
got
all
a car
have a
that
bunch
they,
of cars?
none of them. So, why the hypocrisy? And he'll stand right up and he'll say that his government is not harassing the project. You know, every tool in the toolbox will be used to frustrate it, but we're not harassing the project. Talking through both sides of the face and the rear end at the same time. Okay? That's, you know, and he's prepared to go for lawsuits and write new laws and stuff like that. They don't carry weight. And then we find out that the mayor of Burnaby and the premier are receiving substantial amount of foreign funded eco activists that are money from these guys to orchestrate the protests to disrupt the work on the pipeline to the Westridge terminal. Wow. And the guy's still in office, not impeached. Okay. The natives receive funds from the U.S. rail companies and Canadian rail companies to put a protest against this line's expansion because they're getting big money carrying by rail this oil down to the same terminals. Now, how many know that when you run a diesel, you're giving off carbon dioxide?
Yeah, a lot of it. They're big engines.
And sometimes they have 8 engines pulling these huge, long trains. And there have been how many train accidents in the last 20 years?
And some have over 100 cars on them.
Some of them have over 400 cars when they're only allowed 180. Okay? But they're making huge amounts of money being corrupt. And our government isn't putting a stop to it. Our federal government. Again, showing us as a divided nation with no backbone for any integrity, any morals. Well, when a protester gets arrested, Oregon comes in and pays their fines and or if they're going to go before court, pays for the legal. Does he do that for the people that are pro? Misuse government funding then. So, when you put a stop and this is allowed, you see, it's a demoralization. It's a teaching people they don't have to obey the laws of the land, especially the Constitution. When you lose a Constitution that unites governments into rule of order, you have effectively destroyed your nation. Okay? And Horgan said, well, there should be no retribution for BC if there's a collapse of the Trans Mountain expansion.
There will be though, I'm pretty sure.
There definitely will be. Many have already vowed of it. And he says, well, there was none on the Keystone, but the Keystone's starting up again. It was Obama that put the stop to it. All the agencies had agreed that it was a good thing for the states. And, you know, he's claiming that BC should have an equal say in other jurisdictions, other provinces, what goes on in those provinces.
That's a little overreaching, isn't it?
But not his.
But not, yeah, they do, not in his, but he should have it over there, yeah. And remember, this is a minority government. He's a first-time premier in a minority government, and he's relying on the three members that are from the Green Party to keep his government in office. That's the only thing that gives him a majority. So it's not even rule of majority. Now, when you get 65% of your constituents saying they're in favor of the pipeline, and you're standing up and saying you're against it, are you representing any of the people?
No, just a small little minority that.
A small minority that the leaders of these groups that are organizing them are all receiving US funds from the rail companies down there, from other pipelines, from the governor of Washington, who was up in BC and said, no, you should block this because we can sell you, we can buy Alberta oil and ship it and refine it and ship up the good products to you, and you won't have to worry about CO2 emissions.
Yeah, because there's this big thing at the border that
It
blocks
goes
all the pollution.
all the way up to the atmosphere.
Yes, right out of the atmosphere that blocks CO2 from coming into Canada.
The
Yeah.
wind never blows north. And I have the rich to sell you.
Well, you see, they want to eliminate all oil and natural gas power generators for BC by 2022. And they want to get it out of it so that no building can receive natural gas or bunker oil or any of those heating oils for the winter time.
So what do they want to use for the winter to heat the homes? What are they going to use?
The electricity that they're buying from the States,
Oh,
because then it won't be any CO2 for Canada.
that's crazy.
Okay.
Well, they already have brown spots and everything, like whatever, brownouts
Brownouts,
and everything
yeah.
in the States. So how are they going to be able to supply them with the power? Oh, that'll be nice at 40 below.
Oh, yes. Oh, and everybody's supposed to have these solar panels on their house.
Works in the winter in the mountains, boy.
Yeah.
That sun shines a long after it goes after that mountain. Shines right through it.
Uh-huh. Well,
And the trees.
and the trees and the snow does make it very difficult to produce power when there's no sunshine. But it's a craziness that has set in. And it's a craziness that we have to pray against. You know, it says that idiots and children will rule at the end, you know, sort of that sort of effect, and that we are seeing it in action.
Doesn't mean they need to be ruling. We can speak the word.
That's right, we can pray them out. And he declares he's not an obstructionist with all this activity. He's foreseeing a wonderful, rich future for BC because of his actions.
Rich in what?
I'm seeing a real
Manure
cold
that he's
one.
producing.
I'm thinking a real cold one in the winter.
Rich in cold.
Well, he doesn't believe that it's wrong in receiving eco-activist funds from these companies and stuff in the States, and is dependent on these fundings to help support the campaigns against the Kinder Morgan pipeline. But, you know, under our rule of law, you're not to do that. That's submitting yourself to the loyalty of a foreign agency for money to work against Canada. That's treason.
And it's bribes, he's taking bribes.
He's taking a bribe, basically, yes. But it's treason.
That's,
If Trudeau would call a military court to investigate it, he would be shot for treason.
that's what needs to happen.
Yeah. So
Put an end to this.
Yeah, but we don't have the same thing.
we're presenting this because it's a sign of the times that we have to be aware of. And this is why Jesus put down, pray for your leaders. And sometimes you gotta pray that leaders get removed.
Yeah, we go right into thankfulness, that we call on Yeshua to remove those who need to be
Yes.
removed, bring those in who need to
Yeah.
be brought in, and then speak the word, speak in the words of justice, and
So we're hoping when this gets posted, you'll pass it around and send referrals to shares or whatever they call it on YouTube, so everybody will get to see this. We need a united front to take action. We cannot lay dormant when this goes on like this. Foreigners should not run our governments or pay for the things to be done their way against the Canadian citizens.